Hello everyone, so good to reconnect. In this video we're going to dive into all things Gemini new moon, which is a really exciting, fun time of year. I feel like it feels like the shift from Taurus to Gemini season feels like kind of coming out like the little bear coming out of more of like a calm, steady to just kind of like ready to be more social, to be more in the world, to be more just this kind of exciting, bubbly energy of like summer's beginning. And so in this video, also if you don't know, or if you're new, let me introduce myself. I'm Haley. On this channel we explore the full and the new moons at this moment. Maybe in the future we'll dive into other astrological content. If there's any specific videos in terms of like the basics that you'd like explained, I can totally make those. But in my astrological practice, I use kind of a combination of more traditional Hellenistic approaches as well as more modern kind of psychological, spiritual approaches to astrology to reading clients' charts. So if you would like, if that sounds exciting to you, feel free to reach out and we can totally meet and chat about your individual unique nativity and all the implications for your life. So that being said, in this video, we're going to discuss the next lunation, which is coming up very soon in about a week from when I'm filming this. It's going to be a new moon in the sign of Gemini. And yes, so in this video, we're going to talk about some of the kind of aspects of the lunation chart and then kind of move into the tarot cards to maybe get some confirming or qualifying, specifying messages about this lunation. So let's dive into it. So as always, new moon is kind of the dark moon phase. The night sky, we can see like all of the light is coming from the stars because the moon is completely dark at the exact time of the new moon. So it's kind of a time of seeding, of new beginnings, of rest and quiet before kind of the themes of the new moon play out throughout the lunar cycle. And so for this specific new moon, it's going to take place on June 6th, specifically at 8:38 a.m. Eastern time. And I thought that was kind of cool, that kind of like numerological, I don't know, synchronicity. If it's on 6/6/24, 24 is divisible by 6, it just seems like a very kismet, like very Gemini to have all of those kind of doublings. There's just like a lot of Gemini energy coming through. So just to kind of do a real quick rundown on the sign of Gemini. And so when we're looking at an astrological sign, we kind of have a lot to think about in terms of what are the characteristics of that sign, what kind of gives the sign the energy that we kind of know it to have. And so with Gemini, it's an air sign. So we have, of course, the 4 elements. We have fire, we have earth, we have air, and we have water. So Gemini is going to be an air sign. And then we also have quadruplicity, or kind of modality. And so what that means is we either have a cardinal sign, which kind of initiate the seasons. We have fixed signs, which kind of carry out the seasons. So I think like Taurus season kind of initiates spring and we kind of start to see the flowers blooming and kind of evidence of what was initiated in Aries season when kind of that spark of life was planted. And then lastly, we have the mutable signs, the mutable energy of the zodiac, which Gemini is one of them. And so mutable energy is kind of this kind of like making little edits or making little changes. So we see this kind of subtle shift from Taurus to Gemini season, or some of the flowers are kind of dying away, but there's this more just like abundant sense of, I don't know, spring is kind of being carried through into summer. So with the mutables, we kind of see a subtle shift in that kind of shapes the sign. So going from Taurus season, which is a fixed earth sign, to Gemini, which is a mutable air sign, is quite this big transition, as I said a little bit earlier. And I think I'll leave it at that, but just kind of like looking at the energy of the season, at least in the northern hemisphere, we can kind of see how this is the time of year where kids are kind of like getting out of school. They're getting this kind of excitement around like, wow, I can kind of learn in a different way. Like Sagittarius, the opposite sign to Gemini, is more kind of like traditional academia, more kind of like book learning, more like philosophical in your head, kind of like going overseas to learn something, to be in an ashram, to study. Whereas Gemini is more like, what can I learn in my neighborhood now that I'm at home? If you're a kid and it's summer, like what I learn at the neighborhood pool with my friends and like kind of direct contact where I meet the world kind of things, where it's just like learning through kind of lighthearted, Superficial, not in a negative fake sense, but superficial in an on the surface sense, so where I interface with the world. And so in medical astrology, it's really cool how all of these themes kind of connect and are very synergistic. In medical astrology, Gemini is ruling the hands, and it's also ruling the lungs, among like the arms and other things. And so this is kind of like a very specific example, or maybe very obvious, of like where we physically interact, where we're tactile, where we touch the world, where it's kind of like babies when they start to, I don't know, feel like they want to touch everything and throw it on the ground. Just like feeling like I can have an impact on the world and I can touch it. And the lungs, like how I'm physically interfacing with it. So it's like a very good time to maybe take a course about something you really want to learn more about, in a very lighthearted, kind of playful way, picking up a new book, starting a writing project, journaling, specifically around this new moon, kind of stream of consciousness, journaling, speaking, voice memoing, like having conversations with friends. Yeah, is a really good way to channel this kind of like really fun Gemini energy. So to get into more of the astrological specifics, there's one transit specifically that's kind of overlapping with this lunation that I think is really important to kind of touch on. And so 2 days prior to this lunation, on June 4th, we have a Venus cazimi. So if you're not familiar with the term cazimi, which like why would you be? It's kind of a strange term. But a cazimi is when a planet, maybe you've heard of like a Mercury cazimi, is at the heart of the sun. So it's conjunct the sun exactly. And this is a very kind of interesting position, stance for the planet to be in. And traditionally, it's considered combust the sun. And so it's kind of a more negative position for the planet to be in, according to some astrologers, because it's literally in the heart of like the flames of the sun getting burnt up. But also, it's a really important point for the synodic cycle of these planets. And sorry, you can hear people screaming in the background. That's very Gemini season, people talking all the time. Anyway, but it's kind of this time of rebirth where we see the themes of this planet kind of amplified in the collective, where it's kind of its grand entrance, like it's pulling back the curtains once the sun is, the planet is in the heart of the sun, and then it's kind of making its grand entrance out, reborn from the flames of the sun, kind of having its essence purified in a way. And so with the Venusian themes, we might kind of see, I find like, because Venus cazimis or Venus retrograde cycles in the signs of Gemini and Leo have a lot to do with like celebrity culture. So I don't know, things in the news around marriages of celebrities, relationships in general, could be kind of in the collective or in the news cycle. And so I found this really good quote from the astrologer Chani Nicholas's website. So, while Mercury cazimis can bring intellectual epiphanies and breakthroughs, Venus cazimis, which we're going to have, welcome aha moments of the heart. They help you connect more deeply to yourself, others, and to Venusian themes like art, eros, and pleasure. So that's just something to kind of keep in the back of our minds with this lunation. So the chart ruler of this lunation, we have, I think it's like 17 degrees Cancer is the degree that's coming over the eastern horizon when the new moon perfects. So that makes the chart ruler the moon, which I guess said is a new moon in Gemini. And in addition to the sun and the moon in Gemini, in the 12th house in this chart, which is a dark house, which adds kind of another specifying nuance to the energy of this lunation, we also have, it's a big Gemini pileup. So in addition, we also have Mercury, we have Jupiter, and we have Venus, which I said is also very close to combust the sun. Yeah, and so this big, with the mutable energy, it can be a little bit more subtle, so it can be kind of harder to draw on specific themes, and it can be kind of easier to kind of dance around it verbally. So that's what I'm gonna kind of do. So some of the themes that I have written down are feeling internally split or estranged, maybe from yourself, asking questions like, who am I to claim or embody this essence? So feeling kind of like, again, this kind of doubling Gemini energy of feeling a little bit conflicted or split or unsure. That's very common, especially because Neptune is at the top of this chart, so kind of generally like confusion. Even though Mercury is in its domicile, it's in Gemini, it's very happy there. So we have a lot of like support cognitively, intellectually to kind of move forward, but also maybe, again, because it's a dark moon phase, it's kind of the seeding point of ideas for a new project, or especially if you have a creative outlet, great time to turn to that. But it's like the beginning. It's the beginning of that. Also, confusion around the self and identity crises, specifically, especially around roles or status. Do I have more or less authority than I thought? Or suddenly finding yourself in the role of the teacher or the student when you were previously the reverse. So kind of like that kind of transfers, sort of. Themes around truth and authenticity versus performance and artifice. Like, who am I really? That's tricky with Gemini energy, because again, it's mutable air, so it's trying on all these roles kind of in a very playful, sacred way, being the parrot, like taking little sound bites from all these people and then taking it into yourself and trying it on for size. Like, who am I really? Based off of all of these kind of data points, that all these little things that I've taken. When I think about Gemini energy, I think about pollinators, like how beautiful it is that they kind of just move very fast, very lightly on the surface. Just even the colors, like the yellow, the green, the blue, like very bright colors that are kind of like interfacing with the world in a very playful way on the surface, taking little bits of like nectar here, taking it over here. People with strong Gemini placements tend to be kind of like jacks of many trades, Renaissance men or women, like people who know lots of things, maybe not expertise. I mean, Gemini would probably challenge the idea of expertise in general. That's more of like a philosophical thing, but they're more like, they could be experts in like 10 things, but on maybe a more superficial level, if that makes sense. And so a great time to kind of, yeah, like I said, initiate a new hobby that you're kind of interested in. Although the lunation is happening in a dark house. So, and we also have movement happening in the 8th house, where we have, I believe, yeah, it's a trine. It's a trine from, is it Pluto? Let me check. Yes, Pluto is trining Jupiter in a dark house. So kind of this like undercurrent of strong energy and support, but maybe not in a part of your life that's very visible or obvious at the moment. Great day, yeah, to have like a small dinner party. Mercury and Venus are both in Gemini, which is like just a fun time to just like go out with friends. Themes about relationships, especially for people who have Gemini or Sagittarius, the opposite sign, rising on the ascendant. Specifically, like maybe new themes about relationships coming in. Think about like the Lover's energy in the tarot. Yeah, the lunation is squaring Pisces, and so I think this could be just like, on the surface, maybe a little bit disorienting or kind of like surreal feeling. So again, a really good time to like turn to those creative outlets. I'll say it one more time. It's like going to a film, going to stand-up comedy, kind of playing with this influx of like super creative, cerebral and spiritual energy of the Pisces and the Gemini placements. Just a ton of mutable energy. So if you're someone who going with the flow is a little hard, like let me put my hand up for that, this is a really good time to, if you can, just 5% lean in a little bit more to saying yes to something that you maybe wouldn't. Even though it is a new moon, I wouldn't typically say that because it's more of like an introspective rest time. But yeah, saying yes to more things. Yeah, playing with this could be kind of fun, even though, because in the kind of confusion, the moment of like, oh shit, there's a possibility, there's an emergence of like, wait, if all this is performance and artifice, then I could do something different, if that makes sense. Okay, lovely. Now let's turn to the tarot real quick before we wrap up. Thank you guys so much for being here for this longer video. I like to ramble a lot, especially in Gemini season, as a Gemini rising. Okay. Okay, so just checking in. Is there any message that would help us work with the energy of this Gemini lunation? What can we know, Spirit, to assist us in working with this energy? This Gemini new moon on June 6th. Thank you. Okay. Okay, I love this. The Strength card. We are in a Strength year of the tarot too. I love that. And then we have the 6 of Pentacles upright as well. And then I also pulled, is this the 10? The 9 of Wands in the reversed position. I just love all the yellow too and the green. You can see the astrological magic coming through with the Gemini rules, like the color yellow primarily. Yes, I love this. Okay, so what's immediately coming to mind is the use of creativity to solve problems, especially with the Strength card. As you can see, it's this woman who's pictured who's kind of pacifying this beast, this lion, in a more gentle way. She's just with her loving, like, gentle touch. So what this makes me think about in our own lives is if there is kind of this insurmountable problem that's like too big that we think we could never touch it. It's too big. With this influx of Gemini energy, seeing a problem in a new way, especially with that Pluto Jupiter energy of being able to just suddenly move, like something that was previously insurmountable, like this mountain can move instantly a mile when previously we've been pushing it and it wasn't moving an inch. That sort of thing where there's a lot of momentum, again with an air sign, like there's a new breeze of change potentially coming into our lives, and we can be open to things being easier and more playful and more fun, and like looking for ways that we can introduce more play and more lightness and more kind of socializing into our lives, and ways that kind of can reinforce or introduce connections that suddenly change something, and not through hard work, but through kind of this more gentle, playful approach of like, hey, there's this lion and I'm next to it, but how can I kind of play with that energy? And then also looking and how that enables us to also help others. Like I said previously, with that kind of, maybe if you were previously like in a student role or kind of had insecurities around your expertise in a certain area of your life, suddenly people are asking for help from you or kind of want your opinion in a way. And so being willing to be in this position of giving, not from this kind of like heightened, kind of like, I don't know, grandiose helping charity place, but just like sharing. That's very Gemini, is like, let me tell you what I know. We can just talk and have a conversation, and I'm not up here on a lectern, Sagittarius style preaching. I'm here with you. We're like on the same level. Let me maybe even like get down with you, and we can kind of talk and both mutually reinforce and enrich ourselves by being together and by sharing our knowledge. And how that kind of, again, blows this kind of like wounded individual on this individual hard journey, which I think is kind of very Sag, or maybe even Capricorn, especially Capricorn, this like, I'm on this thing and it's really hard and I'm climbing this mountain of my life. But then this Gemini energy is just like, it's just kind of this refreshing, kind of like, I don't know, like lemony beach, like a lot of like a different approach. I don't know, I think of someone just like working on the beach. I don't know, just like, I could work like, if this life is like a creative opportunity, let me design it the way I want it to be. Yeah, let me see if I can get one more card and then we'll say goodbye. Is there a single? Oh, we got a flipper. The Wheel of Fortune in reverse. So again, trusting the cycles of life, trusting the cycles of relationships, creative projects, careers, trust, like going into our inner world and knowing that will change too. Potentially, yeah, some fear around with the Gemini feeling like it needs to instantly materialize, but also kind of knowing that there are larger cycles at work. Again, with this Venus cazimi, there's kind of this beauty and this magic to the cosmos that there's constantly these cycles coming in and going out, kind of ebb flow type thing, and so that we can trust. And you don't really have to make it all happen. I mean, part of this is right place, right time stuff, and of course, we need to exert some degree of effort, but also, I feel like this card is speaking, how I'm reading it right now in this moment, is that there's an enormous amount of support available. And maybe sometimes we'll be giving and sometimes we'll be receiving, but there is an enormous amount of support, especially creatively. I'm really getting that hard right now. A lot of creative support, brainstorming, making a vision board, a collage. I feel like collages really speak to a part of Gemini. Journaling, writing, writing down what it is that you're seeing for your life. And I feel like it's just, this summer has a lot of momentum, and I'm really loving the astrology for the month of May, which we're leaving, and then I think June is also going to be really great. So thanks for listening to this. Maybe I should start a podcast. This is long. But yeah, much love. Mwah. Again, reach out if you'd like to have your natal chart read. We can do that and set it up. And have a beautiful day. And also feel free to comment below any insights, any observations about this Gemini new moon, or anything at all. So much love. Bye.